you aware of the challenges that are out? Or are you playing aloof? Are you aware? I mean, you live in a community. Do you know the challenges in that community? Hey, welcome again to the Oscar Amisi Leadership Podcast, where we drop a video every week. So passionate about leadership, building and equipping people with the high capacity tools to be able to drive societal transformation. And I want to say that I'm so grateful for the many of you who've watched, subscribed, watched us on YouTube, have been able to go to Spotify and subscribe to, and all the other major podcast platforms that are out there. We are still on the subject of envisioning, vision and envisioning. As a leader, this is so key. This is one of the greatest assets a leader should have and can have if you are to be able to be effective in your leadership journey. And today we want to delve deeper, pick a few things that we didn't pick last time. I remind you a little bit, but pick some new, fresh things that would help you in your leadership journey. Last time when we talked about envisioning, we talked about the fact that envisioning would help you enhance perceptivity. That it helps the leader be able to clearly paint a picture of the future of where they are going. That's what we talked about. Last time we talked about that the other benefit of envisioning is that it clarifies placement. We don't want you being a square peg in a round hole. And that's why it's very important for you to be very clear as far as vision is concerned. We said it strengthens purpose, as in you get to understand this is what I'm out to do. This is what I'm supposed to achieve as a leader. So you don't just aim, aimlessly. You're able to make sure that you're really laser focused on the purpose that you're supposed to be able to achieve. And I gave you a contrast or a comparison, between leaders who are visionary and leaders who are not visionary. We told you that if you're a visionary leader, you'll create clarity and you'll create conciseness. People who are not visionary always create confusion and then making people grope in darkness, not knowing where they're about to go. People who are visionary create stability among those that are led. But if you don't have a vision, interestingly, there'll be too much instability around you because people don't know where the destination is, what they're supposed to achieve. We also told you that visionary leaders facilitate growth and momentum. But those who are not visionary will always create confusion, frustration, and there'll be stagnation in the organization. There are those who've been asking, if I don't have a vision, how do I get a vision? How do I get to know this is my vision? And in today's podcast, I just want to share briefly with us on how do we conceive vision, just to demystify this thing about vision. How do we conceive vision? It is not a very complex thing, no. It is very, very easy for you to get to understand this is what I've been marked for. This should be my journey as far as vision is concerned. I'll share with you two things that would help you be able to conceive a vision. You that has been asking, so yes, you've talked to us about the benefits of vision, but then how do I conceive this vision? You conceive a vision by looking at two things, by paying attention to two very simple things. And I normally say that you are able to conceive a vision, or conception of a vision happens when these two things happen. Number one is to listen, and then number two is to look. Listen, look. Conception of a vision happens when these two things happen. Listen and you look. See, listening, I need you to understand that great visions are birthed in the incubator of attentive listening. And I'm going to say that again. That great visions are often birthed in the incubator of attentive listening. Every great leader needs to have a listening ear, because that's where visions are birthed. And I'll give you an example for you to be able to understand this properly. In the 1950s, there was this great American civil rights movement leader called Martin Luther King Jr. You see, before he came to the limelight, this big stage in the 50s, this great man was a Baptist minister. He was a preacher in a Baptist church. But then what was different with him is that he kept on listening to the things that were happening around him. And that's why it's very important for you as a leader to have your ears on the ground, or an individual for that matter. Because as you listen to the stuff that is happening around you, you get to identify the problem of society, and then you're able to come up with solutions to that problem. So Martin Luther is a Baptist minister. He's listening to the things that are happening around him. Around about that time, there was that, deep segregation, especially in the South, in the U.S. in the South. There was this law in Alabama that said, in a bus, public transport, the front seats were exclusively reserved for the whites. The blacks were to sit in the back seats. But then if by any chance even the back seats are filled up, the blacks were supposed to stand for any white person. So there was this other famous lady who gets into this bus. Her name is Rosa Parks, gets into a bus and she sits at the front seats. And the front seats are packed and there's some white people who are standing, and the driver turns back to Rosa Parks and says, the law, you need to stand. And Rosa Parks softly responds to that driver and says, I'm not going to do it, I'm not going to stand. And the driver says, if you don't stand, then I'll have to get you arrested for you to face the law. And she says, I'm not going to do it. Long story short, she's arrested for not standing, not giving that seat to a white passenger in the bus. And word spreads around and a boycott starts. The Montgomery bus boycott starts. And Martin Luther, because has been listening to what is happening on the ground, responds to what was happening around his community. That's what brought Martin Luther King to the limelight, because he knew there's a challenge amongst my people. Let me take it head on and lead people to a place of freedom to challenge these laws that are so anti his community. He listened to the challenges and the problems of his community. What happened next? All of a sudden, you have this great civil rights movement leader who leads the entire community in fighting for oppressive laws. Again comes up. That's where this famous statement comes up. I have a dream, where he makes this very powerful speech that I have a dream, but you can trace this to the fact that the man was listening to the things that were happening around him. What is happening around you? You want to conceive a vision, you need to start listening to what is happening around your community, and we'll be breaking that a little bit further before we come to the end of this podcast. But number 2, don't just listen, you need to look. Listen, then look. Look around. You see, giving yourself to the discipline of keenly observing the happenings around you. Looking is simply this: giving yourself to the discipline of keenly observing the happenings around you. Don't get detached from your community. You don't play aloof. You observe what is happening. You see, when you listen and you look and you listen to challenges, you look and you see things that are happening around you, I will tell you, a passion, a zeal, a burden develops in your heart for you to be able to be a solution to what is happening around you. And a good story that I'll give you on this one is the story of Bob Pierce. Bob Pierce, the founder of World Vision. Again, in the 50s, he's on a mission trip in Asia. Towards the tail end of his mission trip, he sees this little girl, very malnourished, has not had food for some days. And he's like, there's no way I will leave this girl like this without trying to help out. So he reaches into his pocket. All he could find in his pocket was a $5 bill. And he realized, even if I give this girl this $5 bill, it won't sort out her problems. Gives her the $5 bill, but then goes back home and mobilizes people to respond to what he had seen. When he was in that mission trip, he was keenly observing what was happening around him. He mobilizes people, and World Vision is born. And his famous statement, where he says, God, may the things that break your heart break my heart too. How did that come by? It's because he was able to look and see the things that were happening around him. And any leader, any person who says, I'm wondering, how do I conceive vision? I will tell you simply, start listening to the things around you, start listening to people, and start looking at the things that are happening around you. Keenly observe what is happening in my community. I'm living in a particular, what is happening in that community? I'm in a school, what is happening in this school? By listening and looking, like I said earlier, you'll be able to develop a burden and a passion, and you'll be able to come up with solutions to the problems that are around you. I want to ask you a few questions that you need to be keen of if you're going to conceive vision. Again, in regards to listening and looking. Number one, are you aware of the challenges that are around you? Or are you playing aloof? Are you aware? I mean, you live in a community. Do you know the challenges in that community? The only way you can be aware of the challenges in that community is by talking to people. And means when you're talking to people, you develop an attentive listening ear. I'll tell you one big advantage or one big asset that a leader needs is a ear that is keen on listening. Don't just be the one who talks, but listen to the people. You get to know what is in their heart. Number two, what do you see in your community that breaks your heart? Is there anything that you see around you that breaks your heart? That thing that you see in your community that breaks your heart is the very thing that would help you be able to conceive a vision for what you're doing. Number three, what problems do you keep hearing people around you talk about? What problems do you keep hearing people around you talk about? Are there problems you hear them mention over and over and over again? Those are the things that you need to pay attention to, because when you pay attention to those three questions, I will tell you, you'll be able to conceive a vision. There you have it. Those of you who asked, how do I conceive a vision? It is simple, not mystical, not complicated. Listen and look. Listen and look. You'll be able to develop a burden and come up with solutions that will embark you on a leadership journey to transform not just yourself, to transform the community around you, and to transform your society. Join me next time when we talk in detail, take this conversation further on vision and envisioning. Again, if you like this podcast, share it with your friends. And like I've always said, if you want to learn some of the things that I'm talking about in greater detail, visit Amazon. Go look for my new book, Seed It Out, How Great Leaders Become Great Leader Makers. And I promise you, you'll be embarking on a journey to sharpen your leadership, to transform the people around you, and to be a skillful leader who has a heart for people and a heart for the community. See you next time as we continue this conversation. Bye.